Hi everyone, good evening again. So we are back with this month data jazzers, and if you are joining, you'll see that this month we'll have slightly more focused topic than usual. Usually we are focused on just a person behind a bunch of features, but today we'll do two things. We'll focus on our main guest today, which you'll see in a second, and focus on one feature which got a lot of people excited out there. And we'll see what's hidden behind, what are the questions we need to answer. And for that, today, from Microsoft, Emily is with us, product manager in Power BI and person in charge or guilty of a great feature came out lately. It's our modeling features in Power BI service. Hi, Emily, and welcome to Data Jazzers.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Nice to have you. And to start slowly, can you tell us a bit about you, what you are doing in Power BI team, what are your main responsibilities and things like that?
Yeah, so my name is Emily, and I am a product manager on the Power BI team, and I'm focused on different modeling capabilities in Power BI. Specifically, like one area of focus that I have is bringing parity of modeling functionality that we offer across our surface areas. So a lot of those exciting data modeling capabilities you may be familiar with in desktop, bringing that to the service as well.
That's amazing. I think you are the favorite person of many of us in community then.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, hello from my side to first of all, hello to you, Emily, and thanks for your time to spend for joining us. And hi everyone in the audience. Maybe we can start with this that you already maybe touched upon, and we already talked a little bit before we started the live stream. It's still hot off the press, I would say. Power BI data modeling on the web. It was dream until recently. I know it was one probably most voted ideas and one of the most anticipated features, and now it's here. So can you elaborate a little bit more on this?
Yeah, so this is a public preview release that we just launched very end of April. And this is just a first step in bringing these modeling capabilities that we have in desktop to the service as well. So you can all directly in your browser edit your existing data sets with basic kind of functionality, such as editing and creating relationships, writing DAX, changing your data properties, creating row level security rules and assigning them. These kind of core functionalities we've now brought to the service so you can make all of these changes without ever having to leave your browser.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what are the first impressions? I guess you already got some feedback.
Yeah, so far the feedback has been really positive. I think especially around two different areas. Like one is for non-Windows users, so like Mac users being able to do these like core authoring capabilities directly in the service without having to spin up a VM or set up parallels, like do that whole painful process, and instead just being able to open up a browser and make these changes. We've heard a lot of excitement around that. And the other area we've heard a lot of positive feedback is the ability to now make really quick and easy changes to your data model, where previously you would have to like download your PBIX, launch desktop, make your change, save it, republish, go through that whole flow, even for like something like a small formatting change. Now, instead of having to do that whole process, being able to just make a change quickly and easily in the service and having it just live then, that's also caused a lot of positive feedback. The other area that we've really heard a lot of feedback on is just, so right now this is very much a first step towards bringing a lot of desktop functionality to the service. There are a lot of known limitations we have. So the other area we just hear is people saying like, we really want to see this be brought to the service. We really want like this functionality or you to remove this limitation. And that's the exact kind of feedback we want to hear. So please keep sending that, because we know there's a lot that we can still do in this space and a lot of additional functionality we want to bring and plan to continue bringing. But getting this kind of feedback on like what matters to users the most and what we should prioritize next is super helpful as we're planning our roadmap.
That's really good to hear. And we were just discussing before we went live, but just for all of our audience out there, does it mean the end of Power BI Desktop soon?
It does not. No, this is one of the biggest questions we also keep getting is people are first like, oh, this is exciting. And they're like, wait, does this mean death of desktop? And it doesn't. Like, we are not planning on getting rid of desktop anytime soon. It's not been something we've discussed. We totally get that a lot of people like desktop and there's a lot of value in desktop. So we're keeping desktop. We're just looking to bring these type of experiences to the service as well.
Nice. And you mentioned that there are requests for additional feature parity between desktop and service. So maybe if you can disclose some of those, if it's not under NDA or I don't know, what are the next features that you plan to do something similar to this one with data modeling?
Yeah, which if you want to see a full list of our limitations, we clearly document them in our public documentation. So it's not a secret what our limitations are. Please check those out for the full list of everything. We plan to very regularly keep adding more functionality and remove limitations from this experience. So please keep checking and staying tuned with our monthly updates within the Power BI monthly release blogs for more information. But some top of mind things we're investigating in. So one of the biggest things is that you can only edit existing data sets in the service. So it's one area we're looking into. It's a bit more of a longer haul journey is to be able to create more types of data sets in the service that you can edit. So that's one area we're really looking into. We're also looking into removing different types of limitations and bring additional functionality like around like adding data sources and doing kind of more scenarios that you see in desktop to the web. So we're really looking at a spectrum of a lot of things. Stay tuned for our updates that we're hoping to release very regularly. And if there's anything that you feel like this is a big limitation that would unblock me, please give us that feedback.
And just when we are talking about parity, I was just thinking, are you planning to do a backwards parity as well? So for example, we don't have data flows development in Power BI Desktop. Is Microsoft intention to have full parity on both sides eventually?
Yeah, so the long-term goal is to have functional parity, especially like in terms of modeling capabilities between the service and desktop. This is going to be a long-term journey, so it will take us a while to get there. And it's mostly on functional parity. There are some cases where it might make sense for the user experience to look and feel a little bit different between the different surface areas. There's just some things that you might expect to interact with in one way in a browser that you would in a different way in an application. So it's one thing to be aware of. But yeah, we are looking to, if we bring something to the service, consider bringing it to desktop as well. And one example of this is the row level security editor. So I don't know if you're familiar with data marts, where it's like the drop down row level security editor. That was shipped in data marts. It got a lot of positive feedback. It's also the row level security editor that exists within the data model editing in the service experience with a switcher to allow you to switch between drop-down experience and DAX. And since we're getting kind of positive feedback with testing this in the service, we've also brought it to desktop under a preview switch. It's the enhanced row-level security editor in desktop preview. So that's just one example of something that really started more in the service. And after getting positive feedback and testing it, we've been testing it out in desktop as well.
Amazing. Yeah. Sounds exciting. Yeah. Now let's go back to a little bit on a personal level. And how would you describe your Power BI journey from the early days till now? So from your perspective.
Yeah, so I've actually only been on the Power BI team for about a year now. Prior to that, I was on the Azure SQL team. I joined Microsoft about 5 years ago, was on the Azure SQL team, focused on a few different things such as like supportability and high availability and disaster recovery. And then I switched to the Power BI team a year ago. But before, I guess my Power BI journey didn't start when I switched the team. I did actually use Power BI when I was on the Azure SQL team to kind of understand our own telemetry and our own like usage patterns for Azure SQL. So I was a big fan of using the product when I was on the team, and that's really where my experience both like editing data models and creating reports started. And then I joined the Power BI team a year ago, and the biggest feature I've been focusing on the Power BI team since joining a year ago has been this capability of editing your data models in the web. And just in the last year of being on the team, I've learned so much, met so many amazing people, both internally and in the community, like both of you. And I've just learned a lot. Like the Power BI community is just so much fun to interact with.
Okay, sounds really interesting because people, all the time we have guests from completely different backgrounds. And how did you get used to our monthly release cadence, which is quite unique in the technology world, I would say, with Power BI? Is it pushing a lot of stress on a team, or how is it?
Yeah, so that was actually probably the biggest difference I felt between being on the Azure SQL product team and the Power BI team. So in the Azure SQL world, we probably would have like 2 to 3 trains ship a year. And going from that to monthly, like huge difference. Which is honestly exciting in a lot of ways. I really like the regular releases because it makes it so you can really fastly iterate. If you discover an issue or something you want to improve, like you can fix it. You feel empowered, like this can actually like be changed next month for users. So while it means that we're working fast, I think it's a good thing because it means that we can make changes and we feel empowered to make improvements like sooner rather than later.
That's really good. And looking, coming to a question which is pretty much we ask all of our guests, and it's interesting because of your background and you're pretty fresh, I would say, to Power BI. And we always hear different answers, depends on the people backgrounds. And can you tell us from your point of view, 3 most important concepts to grasp in Power BI? And one focused on beginners, one on intermediate, and one for advanced users.
Yeah, which I think my answers will probably be a bit more data modeling side focused. So just like in advance, just because that's the space I work in. So I guess for beginners, something helpful to know is that modeling exists and the importance just generally of like shaping your data before you go into reporting. I think it's common for a lot of beginners to get excited about Power BI and just ready to instantly report. So I think the first kind of thing I think for beginners to know is that you want to make sure your data is in a good shape before getting to the report, whether it be just kind of like making sure you have the right data type or that you have all the like right data in place. And then for intermediate, I would say is learning more about things like the star schema and following like proper data modeling practices. So learning what like a fact table is, what dimensions are, and how to kind of go from either having like one big table to a star schema, or from maybe like a OLTP type setup to more OLAP. And then advanced, I think one of the biggest concepts for like Power BI is then like figuring out how to use more of these like pro user type scenarios to improve the performance of your data model. So that way, like once you go to reporting, especially if you have like massive amounts of data, like you have proper performance and it's actually a usable report. So I know those were kind of like bigger concepts instead of like features, but that's just kind of like what comes top of mind when I think of different users in the modeling world.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah,
completely good. And just while you were talking, I was thinking maybe we are doing, maybe we forgot about one thing, because now when we have modeling in a service, we'll have much more big, flat tables out there than before. And I think now it's ideal time, if anybody out there didn't, to invest in data modeling education and how to do it. Because earlier it was regular users either didn't install or didn't have rights to install Power BI desktop and used models which are published. Now, when I can build a model, the fastest way is to build one big table and try to do time intelligence out of it.
Yeah, which the one big table concept's always really interesting to me. I've seen so many terms for it as well. I've seen like Franken table. I've seen like one massive table. So yeah, that's very much top of mind, and like just helping like users understand like the benefits of maybe going from your one massive table to more dimensional modeling is something I'm really interested in. So also, if anyone has feedback on things you've learned in your journey, either for yourself or from others, watching them go from like one massive table to more of a data model, this is something I want to hear more feedback on. Like, what learnings you all have had. What are ways that we can help users in understanding like how to make the transition from a big table to an actual data model? It's something I'm really interested in learning more from the community about.
Maybe what we can do in now in a service, when you are done with modeling, maybe before you exit the screen, the pop-up comes. Did you forget maybe a date dimension? Are you sure you want to save it? or
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. But you mentioned data modeling as, let's say, a general concept, and probably, yeah, I think Augustine and I already, we are also agreeing with you on that, that this is something that everyone who works with Power BI must absorb. Do you have any go-to resources for learning more about? Let's focus on the dimensional modeling, not data modeling in general, but dimensional modeling for Power BI. Any books? Yeah.
So one thing that I think is really helpful. So my coworker Jay actually did a series of a few webinars explaining like some of these basic like dimensional modeling type concepts, like what's a fact table, what's a dimension table, and then kind of going into how to use those concepts actually in Power BI. I'd recommend users check out those webinars. I think he does an excellent job going through a lot of these concepts and explaining them at different levels.
Yeah, I remember it was 3-part series, like from beginner to advanced. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he takes you through the three things I was talking about, the beginner to advanced people. If you want like an in-depth of that, I have the perfect webinar for you.
Okay, so if someone wants to go quickly from beginner to advanced in Power BI, just watch 3 webinars, and there you go.
Yeah.
Just kidding, of course. Yeah.
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 But even that is better than nothing. So I would say watch those 3 webinars, and you are on a good way to becoming a data modeler.
Absolutely. And
go on
sorry. Yeah, and I think even in those webinars, there's other resources referenced. And like there's just tons of things out there. If you want to learn just like the concepts of like dimensional modeling, there's tons of like books and like different sessions on this, and just like about Power BI as well. We have documentation and learning resources as well. But if I were to pick like one thing to just get started, I think those webinars do an excellent job.
Yeah, one more thing. Now that came to my mind. I know that calculation groups are coming soon to Power BI Desktop. Are there any plans for calculation groups to be supported also in Power BI Service experience?
Yeah, which is a really good question. So we are really looking into supporting what we kind of view as more of these like pro user type data modeling scenarios directly in desktop. And the team that's working on that, I am working with them to make sure that when we add something to desktop, we're not bringing debt to the service, that we'll soon after be able to support these types of capabilities in the service. So it's not necessarily going to be everything shipped everywhere at once, but our goal is to have functional parity in modeling functionality in desktop and service, which means these new scenarios you might see light up in desktop, our goal is to bring those to the service eventually as well.
Cool,
just from a user perspective. So when I read the first time about data modeling support in a service, my first impression is that it's, at least in the beginning now, aimed to regular business users wanting to do some modeling directly there. And from what you said, so hopefully in the future you are supporting as well professional developers and data modelers as well.
Yeah, so right now, since it is a limited amount of functionality with just doing things like, creating and editing relationships, writing DAX, changing properties, like we know it's a kind of a limited set of features. While they're like really important ones and helpful, like we know that a lot of pro users need like more and more functionality to get all of their data modeling needs done. So right now, I would say we are targeted like a bit more towards like an analyst persona or someone kind of just wanting to do basic modeling for existing data sets. But over time, as we add more and more functionality, I do see this as a place where like more pro users would want to like actually do their data modeling and make changes like within the web as well. So while it'll take some time to get all that functionality and get there, I do see this as an option for these more pro user type people as well.
Nice. And also maybe slightly connected to this topic, and you recently ran a very interesting survey on social media. I saw it, I think, on Twitter, asking the community about the challenges that new users encounter when they just start building their own Power BI data models. What was the main motivation for running this survey, and what's the outcome? Do you have I don't know, some interesting answers or something that you might not expected to get as an answer?
Yeah, so the big reason why we sent this out, we hear time and time again that data modeling, while it's like really important to build your data model and have it in a shape where it's ready for reporting, it's hard to do, especially for beginner users who are just learning Power BI. There's just a steep learning curve. And so since we keep hearing this feedback time and time again, we want to dive deeper into it and think through potential ways that we can maybe help like assist users in this journey and help them kind of from this beginning point where they're learning what even is data modeling to being able to get their data model in a shape where it's ready for reporting. So it's still very much an investigation phase right now, but we got so much good feedback on social media. So thank you, Power BI community. I was extremely impressed by the amount of responses we got within just like a few hours. Really appreciate it. The biggest takeaways and trends that I at least noticed, I'd say there's two things that emerged the most. So one was that concepts of like building a star schema is difficult to learn, and learning like what even is a star schema is hard. And then the second one that I saw a lot was around building a proper date table and having that set up for your data model. So those are the two biggest things I've learned, but there's tons of other feedback as well. But the two biggest trends I noticed were those two areas.
Yeah, I can confess I forgot to respond on the survey. I will, I promise. But I can confess that missing a regular date or calendar table is one of the biggest caveats for beginners. Definitely.
Maybe that's a new idea. Maybe we can you can think of building a one-click date table. So some wizard, please add me a date table to my model, and wizard creates it automatically.
Yeah, which I think could be really helpful having something like that. And I saw it like by so many users saying similar things that they're like, this is really hard to set up. So some kind of wizard or some kind of way to just help users in creating a date table, I think would be really exciting to see.
Exactly. That already exists in Bravo, this external tool. And I mean, users are not aware, so they have this auto date time option checked. Everything works fine for them, but they don't know what happens in the background. So that's the
wizard is creating date tables in the background.
Yeah.
Multiple of those.
Yeah. But
and when we are talking about that feature, Emily, so it's obviously a big one. And just for community out there to get an impression, how big is the team working on a feature like that, and how much time did you need to develop it from zero to first delivery now?
Yeah, which the team has been working on just basic infrastructure of the model view and improving it and getting to a state where it's ready to go in the service for like a very long time now. Like before I joined the team, like for many years, the model view itself and desktop has been kind of improved and gotten in a shape ready to bring to the service. So I can't even give the full context of like the entire journey. There's other people on the team who've been around longer who give a better concept of that. We've done actually really cool sessions internally where it was shared like the full journey of Power BI model view throughout the years. But I would say that like since like joining the team, like it has been like about a year since I've joined, where we're really focused on like making this to a point where we can share with users and get testing. Some work was, of course, done before I joined that, but it's been about a year of like getting it to a state of like active testing to bring out to a public release like what we did last month. And there's a lot of collaboration across different like developers and designers in Power BI, but the core team is actually about like 10 or so people who are making these changes. So exciting stuff. I'm so impressed with the developer team. They're all really intelligent people, and they've done such a great job bringing such exciting functionality. So the real kudos goes to the whole developer and designer team that have been working for so long, so hard on these functionality.
Amazing.
And coming to the next question is pretty much about your future current focus. So I know it's purely modeling, but are you sticking just with modeling with us for next year? And for audience out there to know, is Emily a person behind, so we can all reach out on Twitter, LinkedIn, or whatever? Or how do you foresee it for you personally?
Yeah, so my focus will still be modeling. There'll be a lot of different aspects of modeling. I think the biggest thing, if you want to reach out for feedback on, say, the blog post or forums or social media, the best thing to give feedback on, I think, would be what additional functionality you want to see in the service to help unblock your needs. That is definitely going to be still a huge area of focus. I think there's tons of progress we still want to make to enhance this data model editing in the web experience. So stay tuned to give feedback on that. But in terms of other areas we focused on, it is like really all in the modeling type space. So helping users with bringing in their data to Power BI, helping users simplify their understanding of how to do data modeling capabilities. These are the types of questions that I'm really thinking about on a day-to-day basis, and would love to hear feedback from the community on, and how we can kind of help users as they get started in building and shaping their data, so that way it's ready to go for reporting and gathering insights.
Okay, yeah. Talking about the focus, what's your current focus? If you can describe your usual day, week, month, year in Power BI also.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like the day-to-day, I feel like varies a lot depending on where you are in a feature life cycle. But my focus is, like I've been talking about, on these modeling concepts. So I'd say a day for me, it looks like a lot of meetings with a lot of different types of people, which I'm sure isn't too much of a surprise since I'm a product manager. But yeah, in a day, like a lot of times I'll meet with designers, I'll meet with developers, I'll meet with different PMs who are working on other features that I think that we want to make sure have a smooth end-to-end user experience. So like I don't only work in my own silo. Like while I focus on modeling, I don't work only in that silo. I also am interacting with PMs and like the reporting side or the pro user side to make sure that what we're building works well together rather than feeling like different siloed pieces of a product. So I'll meet with those kind of people. I'll meet with different users who are giving feedback, different community members, to hear what like we're talking about, like if this is actually valuable to the community, what kind of like feedback like Power BI users have in our experiences. So it's a lot of meetings, and then also like taking all this information and writing specs on how we want to like use feedback we've gotten or plans from like other initiatives to make sure that like we are building the right features and defining like the right functional requirements for our next improvements and capabilities.
Yeah, and I would like to hear your input, because we had a lot of your colleagues from Microsoft, from different teams joining us here, and we were always discussing how much effort, how much work goes into, publishing a feature such this one, which is obviously huge, but also for some, let's say, smaller ones where people think, okay, that's 5 minutes to change something and it will work. And then, yeah, Jay explained us, for example, that, I don't know, for some things in matrices, they need to change something in Excel code, and I don't know. So it's a whole kind of complexity that, even though it looks very simple, it's not. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, so definitely bigger initiatives, like I was saying, like bringing modeling, editing data models to the web, like that's taken like years of work and infrastructure, and we still have a ways to go to get to where we want. So big projects like that are very time consuming. I like setting that expectation that we are making progress, but some things just take a while to do. It just physically you cannot move faster than like a certain speed. But then like when it comes to smaller features that you're talking about, I think it is common for users to be like, oh, it's so quick to like change this like tiny like button or change like this really small capability. But those things do also take time because you're not just making like one change. Like every change you make can interact with so many different like capabilities and functionality within our product, where like each of those changes you have to make sure won't break anything else, like still works towards the vision that like different kind of interacting features have. So it involves both like discussion across teams and testing, even for like seemingly small changes. So like, I guess in general, I agree with what you were saying, that the feedback that Jay gave, where yeah, these small changes aren't that small. They take, I think, significantly more time.
Very often it's not only within the product, within the Power BI, but also has a potential impact on other products.
Exactly. Like Power BI interacts with so many different other products, and we need to make sure that that like end-to-end user experience is smooth. So if you make a small change, you don't want to break like a connector to Excel or like, I don't know, any of the other products that we interact with.
Yeah, that's I'm always amazed to hear, because from just end user perspective, from Power BI professionals like both of us are, it's some things seems like minor things, but then every time, over and over again, we hear that it's really a big and just the tip of an iceberg what we see it's built in a product regarding the work you need to do in the backend. But talk about that. So what's for you, Emily, number one missing feature in Power BI? So we love to ask that question, especially to all the Power BI team members. What do you see as number one missing feature?
Yeah, so number one on my personal wish list of things I'd like to see in Power BI is improved like source control or kind of like development processes, especially around version history, allowing like users to see like, here are versions of my artifacts, so like whether it be like a data set or report that from the past. So that way, if you like made a change, regret it, want to see like what you did like previously, you can have that rollback capability where you can open up like a previous version from a previous point in time and then like use that change instead. I'm a big, since I in the Azure SQL team was focused on high availability and disaster recovery, I'm a big fan of these kind of like recover to a previous point in time capabilities. So that I think is kind of why this is so top of mind for me, and it's something we hear so much user feedback on. So for me, that would be number one in Power BI. I would love to see version history for Power BI.
We would all love to see that.
Coming soon, hopefully.
Yeah, it is top of mind for me. I don't know if it's coming soon, but it is something that I'm looking into and would absolutely love to see in the product.
Yeah.
Now, okay, with changing of scripting language in the backend and all the improvements, I hope it's coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, these things take time. Something like version history is a very difficult thing to implement, and it's something you want to implement right. So I want to set expectations that while it's something that I would love to see, something we're thinking about, it's a hard problem, and it's one of those things like what we were talking about that it does take a long time to get there. Like all these changes, like really do take a while to develop. But it's something that I think if we did have version history, it'd be awesome. I think that would be such a good and like helpful capability.
Yeah, absolutely. And from data modeling perspective, any missing features that you would like to see?
I mean, there's tons of limitations.
Then top three. Let's say top three.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of the things that I'm most excited to see would be things like I would love to see version history for data modeling, being able to restore your like data set to a previous point in time. I'd really like to see bringing a lot of the core capabilities that exist in desktop to the service. So things like Power Query support, like that you might be familiar with in the transform data experience. I think that'd be awesome to have in the service as well. But I guess in terms of like just core modeling functionality, I think there's tons of things that users have been using in other like third-party products, like where they're modifying using the XMLA endpoint. That'd be cool to bring directly into the product as well. So there's tons of different buckets of things that I think that I see of things I'd want to be added for modeling, whether it be like pro user scenarios, bringing things to the service, or kind of enhancing our like feature, the report development lifecycle, are kind of the three that come top of mind as just big buckets of things I would really like to see.
Okay, but let's say that you are a business user, like you don't have idea about XMLA endpoints and versioning and stuff like that. What would you like to see as a business user, for example, in Power BI?
So I guess that's kind of where like my survey of trying to understand like how can we make modeling easier, like being able to bring some of these concepts to the product, I think would be really cool. So something like, say you added your data model and we help you like guide you through best practices on shaping it so that way it's ready for reporting. So that way you could go from like, I just have this like really big table and need to make a report, to, okay, now it's in a good shape and I was guided and learned along the way on how to like build a proper data model so it's ready for reporting. I think that would be something that I would find really exciting and helpful for these types of business users, especially as they're getting started in a new product.
Now you sound like a chat GPT.
That's what I wanted to say. Ideally, I bring in one big table and ask GPT for, please make me a star schema.
Yeah, yeah, something like that would be really cool. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could approach this same kind of like, how can we help beginner users make their process easier? But I think doing something, whether it be using AI, whether it not be using that, I think would be something that I at least would find helpful for users who are getting started.
But you see also some feedback from our community. So you're everywhere this week. So that's good, because people are reacting to new feature coming out. So that's really good feedback from the community.
Yeah, which like hopefully everyone's not getting sick of me talking about data model editing in the web yet.
Oh, not at all, not at all.
But we're just really excited about this feature and to hear more and more feedback about this. So
you have to understand that the entire community is talking about data modeling for years now, and all we see is challenges, and we really love when any new improvement comes in. And then we can talk about it, not just complaining about what is missing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, love to have a star schema maker. We would also love to have it, Donald. Yeah, Augustine, that's maybe a business idea for us.
Yeah, which is helpful. We're looking for any kind of.
Yeah. So we can always discuss here in the Data Jazzers about star schema making. Maybe, Nicola, next time we bring as a guest just one big table and start discussing about.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
And Emily, it's just for community out there. So, okay, maybe this week, last week, you are everywhere, but hopefully, and we hope, that we'll see a lot of you in the future as well, meaning a lot of exciting things are coming from your team. Can you at least tell us, can we expect a lot of you in the future as well?
I don't know if quite as much as like this week or like last week since the public preview release. I know the community seen like a ton of me just because I've been so excited to share this new like preview release. So I think that, you know, there'll probably be less of me like everywhere. But I do plan, like we plan on having like regular updates to both like data model editing and also like we're hoping to bring like more exciting functionality just in the modeling space as well. So I'd say I'm not going anywhere. You'll still see like updates in the monthly release blog and in other platforms. I hope to continue to join like sessions like this one in other community events. I want to still stay engaged in the community. And we do have exciting things coming up but you might not see it quite to this full-blown scale. But you're just like, how is she everywhere? Like, why is she on every single?
No, you are very welcome to join us whenever you have something interesting to share. You are very welcome to join us.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Because yeah, I mean, this is like such a fun part of being involved in a product release, is actually talking to community members and hearing feedback and having this direct engagement. So I do plan on still staying involved with everyone.
And we invite everybody out there in the community as well. Respond as much of you as you can to Emily's questionnaire on social media, so that based on that, she can improve product much further and include some of the features which are missing maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's like exactly like one of the best things about interacting with the community is getting this rich feedback, which like does help us in shaping our roadmap and understanding like how we can best provide a product that's actually like useful and helpful to Power BI users. So really, really appreciate all the feedback we've been receiving so far. Please continue to give us feedback. We do look at this and it does help us in shaping our roadmap.
And we are looking forward to start Schema Maker.
Okay, I'm not promising anything. I'm just saying. Yeah, no promises. There's just we've been getting great feedback in that space, though.
Cool. Thanks. I don't see any more questions from the audience. Yeah, maybe we can slowly wrap up. From our side, Emily, many thanks for joining us. It was a real pleasure to have you and chat not just about this cool feature that recently landed in Power BI ecosystem, but also to know more about you and your role within Power BI team, and especially what can we expect in the future from you and your colleagues, obviously.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and talking with me and giving feedback. Really appreciate you taking the time to have me on the show and share your thoughts about data modeling as well.
You are more than welcome. Whenever you have something, just reach out. And for all of our audience out there, so this month, Live from Redmond episode will be a bit later. Expect us a day or two after Microsoft Build is officially finished. So we'll come back with exciting new features that will be released during Build, so stay tuned. And thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Emily, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks, you too.